The night sky over Montana was clear and full of stars. Jake stood on the wooden porch of his small ranger cabin, drinking coffee and listening to the sounds of the forest. He was 32 years old, a former combat medic who had left the Army 8 years ago. Now he worked as a wilderness ranger in one of the most remote parts of the state. He liked the quiet. He liked being alone. The mountains did not ask questions about his past. It was almost midnight when he saw it. A bright streak of light cut across the sky, moving too fast and too low to be a normal aircraft. Jake set down his coffee and watched. The light changed direction suddenly, something no plane or meteor could do. Then it dropped behind the tree line about 3 miles to the north. A few seconds later, he heard the sound of impact. It was a deep, heavy boom that shook the ground beneath his feet. Jake did not wait. He grabbed his emergency pack, his flashlight, and his radio. He tried to call the main station, but there was only static. Something was interfering with the signal. He would have to check this out alone. He moved through the forest quickly. Years of training had made him comfortable in the dark. He knew these woods better than anyone. The smell of smoke reached him first, then the glow of small fires burning in the trees ahead. When he finally reached the crash site, he stopped and stared. It was not an airplane. It was not a helicopter. It was something he had never seen before. The craft was about the size of a small house but shaped like a teardrop. The surface looked smooth and almost alive, like the skin of some giant sea creature. Parts of it were cracked open, and a strange blue light pulsed from inside. There were no wings, no rotors, no engines that Jake could recognize. This was not human technology. Jake approached slowly. His heart was beating fast, but his training kept him calm. He had seen terrible things in Afghanistan. He had learned to keep moving even when his mind wanted to freeze. He climbed through a crack in the hull and entered the craft. The inside was dark except for that pulsing blue light. The walls curved in strange ways, and the air smelled like metal and flowers mixed together. Jake moved deeper inside until he found them. 3 women hung upside down from the ceiling, held in place by some kind of restraints that looked like thick vines. They were not human. Their skin had a faint glow, like moonlight was coming from inside them. Their hair was long and silver, floating around their heads like they were underwater. Their ears were slightly pointed, and their features were beautiful in a way that seemed almost impossible. Jake checked them one by one. They were alive, but barely. Their breathing was shallow and their pulses were weak. The restraints would not release no matter what he tried. He pulled out his survival knife and began cutting carefully. The vine-like material was tough, but his blade was sharp. He caught the first woman as she fell. She was light, much lighter than he expected. He carried her outside and laid her gently on the grass away from the burning trees. Then he went back for the second one. She was younger, with markings on her face that looked like freckles made of light. He carried her out too. The third woman was the smallest. She looked young, maybe in her early 20s by human standards. As Jake cut through her restraints, a small explosion rocked the ship. He grabbed her and ran. Behind him, the craft burst into brighter flames. He laid her down next to the others and checked her for injuries. That was when he saw it. On her left forearm, partially hidden by her strange clothing, was a tattoo. Jake's hands began to shake. He pushed back her sleeve and looked closer. It was a black compass rose with the words "per" wrapped around it in simple letters. Jake sat back on his heels. His chest felt tight. He could not breathe. He knew that tattoo. He knew it because he had the exact same one on his own left forearm. Danny Vance had designed it 8 years ago in a small military outpost in Afghanistan. Danny had drawn it on a piece of paper and shown it to their whole squad. "Per," he had said. "Through hardships, that's us boys. We go through anything." They had all gotten the tattoo together, 6 soldiers bonded by blood and fire. 3 weeks later, they were ambushed. Danny died in Jake's arms, so did the others. Jake was the only survivor. He had carried that tattoo and that guilt ever since. Now he was looking at the same design on the arm of an alien woman who had just crashed from the sky. Jake looked up at the stars. His mind was racing with questions that had no answers. How was this possible? Who were these women? Why did one of them have Danny's tattoo? He needed to get them somewhere safe. He needed to help them survive. Then he would get answers. Jake worked through the rest of the night. He built a simple stretcher from branches and his jacket. He carried each woman, one at a time, through 3 miles of dark forest back to his cabin. It took him until dawn. His muscles burned and his old wounds ached, but he did not stop. He laid them on the floor of his cabin, covered them with blankets, and started a fire in the stove to keep them warm. Then he sat in his chair by the door, his rifle across his lap, and watched them sleep. Outside, the sun rose over the mountains. Birds began to sing. The world looked the same as it always did, but Jake knew that everything had changed. He looked at his own tattoo, then at the sleeping alien woman with the matching mark on her arm. "What are you?" he whispered, "and how do you know Danny?" The woman did not answer. She just kept breathing, slow and steady, while the morning light crept through the windows. Jake waited. He had learned patience in the army. He had learned it even better in the mountains. Whatever this was, whatever it meant, he would find out. He owed that much to Danny. He owed that much to himself. And somewhere deep inside, beneath all the confusion and fear, Jake felt something he had not felt in a very long time. Hope, the first one, woke up just after noon. Jake was sitting in his chair, fighting sleep, when he heard movement. The oldest of the 3 women opened her eyes and sat up slowly. She looked around the cabin with confusion, then fear, then something like calm understanding. She tried to speak, but her words made no sense. They sounded like music and wind mixed together. Jake held up his hands to show he meant no harm. He spoke slowly. "You are safe. You crashed. I brought you here." The woman watched his lips move. She tilted her head like she was trying to understand. Then she reached into a pocket in her clothing and pulled out a small silver device. She pressed something on it and held it toward Jake. "Speak again," she said. Her voice came through the device, rough and strange but clear enough to understand. "You are safe," Jake repeated. "I found you in the crash. I brought you here to my cabin." The device made a soft humming sound. The woman nodded slowly. Translation is working now, rough but functional. She looked at her 2 companions still sleeping on the floor. "My sisters, are they injured?" "I do not think so. They are just unconscious. What is your name?" "I am," she pointed to the others. "That is Sierra." Jake nodded. "I am Jake. Studied him with silver eyes. "You saved us. Why, you do not know what we are." Jake shrugged. "You were hurt, that is reason enough." Stared at him for a long moment. Then something changed in her expression. It was not quite a smile, but close. "Perhaps the stories about your kind are true," she said quietly. Before Jake could ask what she meant, the other 2 began to wake up. Sat up first, Grabbing's arm with fear in her eyes. Spoke to her in their musical language and slowly relaxed. She looked at Jake with curiosity instead of fear. Sierra was the last to wake. She opened her eyes slowly like someone coming out of a deep dream. When she saw Jake, she went very still. Her gaze moved to his left arm, to the tattoo visible below his rolled-up sleeve. Her silver eyes went wide. Jake watched her. "You have the same mark," he said. "On your arm, the compass rose per." Sierra did not move. She just stared at him. Looked between them with confusion. "Sierra, what is he talking about?" Sierra finally spoke. Her voice was softer than her sister's, almost a whisper. "He is the one, the soldier from the mountains, the one who would not stop." The cabin fell silent. Jake felt cold despite the fire burning in the stove. "What do you mean?" he asked. "How do you know about me?" Turned to her younger sister. "Sierra, explain." Sierra took a deep breath. She pulled back her sleeve to show the tattoo clearly. The compass rose, the words, exactly the same as Jake's. "My people watch other worlds," Sierra began. We observe, we learn, we do not interfere. I was very young when I came to Earth for the first time. I was part of a small team studying human behavior. We were invisible to your people. We only watched. Jake listened without speaking. We were in a place you call Afghanistan. There was a war. We watched the soldiers, both sides. We wanted to understand how humans fought, how they died, how they treated each other in battle. Sierra paused. Her voice became heavier. Then we saw something we did not expect. Jake knew what she was going to say. He could feel it coming like a storm. There was an ambush. A small group of human soldiers was attacked. Most of them fell quickly, but one kept fighting. He was wounded, bleeding from many places, but he did not run. He crawled through the fire and the bullets to reach his fallen brothers. One by one, he pulled them to safety. He held one of them as he died, promising to remember him. Jake closed his eyes. He could see Danny's face. He could feel the weight of his body in his arms. He could hear his own voice making that promise. "I watched you," Sierra said softly. "I watched you fight when you had no reason to believe you would survive. I watched you show love and loyalty that I had never seen in any species, anywhere in the galaxy. You were broken and dying, but you refused to stop." She touched her tattoo. "Among my people there is a sacred practice. When we witness an act of extraordinary courage or compassion, we mark ourselves with a symbol of that person. We call it the marking of the remembered. It is the highest honor we can give." Jake opened his eyes. Sierra was crying. Silver tears ran down her glowing cheeks. "I marked myself with this symbol because of what I saw that day. The design your friend drew, the words he chose. I carry them to honor him and to honor you. I have carried them for 8 years." Jake could not speak. The guilt he had carried for so long suddenly felt different. All these years, he had believed he was the only one who remembered. He had believed Danny's death had no meaning beyond his own private pain. But someone had been watching. Someone had seen. Someone had thought it was worth remembering forever. Moved closer to her sister and took her hand. Watched Jake with new understanding in her eyes. "Your people are remarkable," said. "We have observed many species across many worlds. None of them fight like humans. None of them love like humans. You are fragile and short-lived, but there is something in you that burns brighter than anything we have ever seen." Jake wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. He looked at Sierra. "Danny," he said. "That was his name, Danny Vance. He was my best friend. He designed that tattoo for our squad. He said it meant we would go through anything together." Sierra nodded. "Then I carry his name in my heart as well, Danny Vance. I will never forget him." Jake stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the afternoon sun was shining on the mountains. The world looked peaceful and ordinary, but inside his chest, something was shifting. Something heavy was becoming lighter. He turned back to the 3 alien women sitting in his cabin. "Why were you here?" he asked. "Why did you crash?" His expression darkened. "We were on a diplomatic mission. We were attacked by enemies of our people, a species called the hunters, killers. They view other species as prey or slaves, nothing more." Looked at the floor. "They will come looking for us. They always finish what they start." Jake felt the familiar calm settle over him. The calm he always felt before danger. "How long do we have?" Checked her damaged device. Her face went pale. "Less than 6 hours. Jake did not panic. He had learned long ago that panic was useless. It wasted time and energy. Instead, he asked questions. "How many are coming?" Checked her scanner again. 300 killers, standard pursuit team. "Tell me about them, everything." Exchanged a look with her sisters, spoke up, her voice trembling slightly. "They are predators. They are tall, almost 7 feet. Their bodies are covered in natural armor like thick bone plates. They are fast and strong, much more than any human. Weapons. Energy rifles. Bladed weapons for close combat. They prefer to hunt with blades. It is a point of pride for them." Jake nodded slowly. What are their weaknesses? The three sisters looked at each other with confusion. Sira answered, weaknesses? They have none. They have conquered dozens of worlds. No species has ever successfully fought back against them. Every creature has weaknesses, Jake said. Joints in the armor, vision, hearing. Thought about it. The armor is thinner at the joints. Their eyes are sensitive to bright light. They rely more on smell than hearing to track prey. Good. Jake walked to the corner of the cabin where an old wooden chest sat. He had not opened it in years. He knelt down and unlocked it. Inside was his old military gear, a rifle with a scope, a pistol, body armor, ammunition, a tactical knife, smoke grenades. Everything was clean and maintained. He had kept them ready out of habit, even though he had hoped never to use them again. Watched him with wide eyes. What are you doing? Preparing. Preparing for what? Jake stood up and began loading his rifle. For the fight. The three sisters stared at him like he had lost his mind, stepped forward. Jake, you do not understand. They are not like anything you have faced. Your weapons are primitive. You have no shields, no armor that could stop their attacks. Against three, you would die in seconds. Jake looked at her calmly. Maybe. Maybe that is your answer. He finished loading the rifle and set it aside. Then he began checking the pistol. Let me tell you something about humans. We have been killing each other with weapons like these for hundreds of years. Thousands, if you count earlier versions. We are very, very good at it. Sira shook her head. But they have conquered entire planets. They have technology beyond anything on Earth. Jake smiled slightly. Technology is not everything. Sometimes it comes down to who knows the ground better, who is willing to hurt more, who refuses to stop fighting even when they should. He met Sira's eyes. You watched me 8 years ago. You saw what I did. Did it look like I knew when to quit? Sira was silent for a moment, then she shook her head slowly. No, it did not. Jake nodded. Then let me do what I know how to do. He spent the next hour preparing the battlefield. They would expect to find scared prey hiding in a cabin. They would not expect traps. Jake moved through the forest with the three sisters following behind him. He showed them every rock, every tree, every slope of the land. He knew this terrain like he knew his own body. He had walked it every day for 6 years. At one spot, he piled rocks at the top of a steep hill. A small push would send them tumbling down. He tied rope across a narrow path between 2 large trees, set at neck height for a 7-foot creature. He dug a shallow pit and covered it with leaves and thin branches, then sharpened wooden stakes and planted them at the bottom. Watched him work with amazement. You are turning the forest into a weapon. The forest was already a weapon, Jake said. I am just showing it what to do. As the sun began to set, Jake gathered the sisters inside the cabin. He had one final thing to teach them. If they get past me, you run. Not away from the mountains, but deeper into them. There are caves about 2 miles east. They are hidden and hard to find. You can survive there until your people come for you. Shook her head. We will not leave you to die alone. Jake looked at her with steady eyes. I have died alone in my mind 1,000 times since Afghanistan. It does not scare me anymore. What scares me is failing to protect people who need my help. Do not make my fear come true. Sira stepped forward. Her silver eyes were bright with emotion. Why are you doing this? You do not know us. You owe us nothing. Jake thought about it for a moment. When Danny was dying, he made me promise something. He made me promise to keep going, to keep fighting, to protect people who could not protect themselves. I have spent 8 years hiding in these mountains, trying to forget that promise. Maybe this is the universe reminding me. He touched his tattoo. And now I know someone was watching. Someone thought what I did mattered. How can I stop now? Sira reached out and touched his arm just above the tattoo. You are the bravest person I have ever seen, Jake, human or otherwise. Night fell. The forest grew dark and quiet. Jake positioned himself at the edge of the tree line where he could see the clearing in front of the cabin. His rifle was ready. His knife was at his belt. His heart was calm. Scanner beeped softly. She looked at the screen, then at Jake. They are here, coming down through the atmosphere now. Jake watched the sky. 3 points of red light appeared above the mountains, descending fast. Get inside, he said. Stay down. Do not come out until I tell you it is safe. The sisters retreated into the cabin. Sierra looked back at him one last time, her face filled with fear and hope, and something that might have been love. Jake turned back to the forest. He took a deep breath of the cold night air. Somewhere above him, 3 alien hunters were preparing to kill. They did not know what was waiting for them. They did not know that on this small, primitive planet, in these quiet mountains, a single human had decided they would not leave alive. Jake clicked off the safety on his rifle. Come on then, he whispered to the darkness. Let us see who the real predator is. Landed in the clearing just as the first light of dawn touched the mountains. Jake watched them from his hiding spot behind a thick fallen tree. They were exactly as had described, 7 feet tall, bodies covered in dark armor, eyes that glowed faintly red in the dim light. They moved with the confidence of predators who had never been challenged. They spread out and approached the cabin slowly, sniffing the air. Jake could see the weapons in their hands, long rifles that hummed with energy, curved blades strapped to their backs. One of them made a clicking sound with its mouth, and the other 2 responded. They were communicating, coordinating their hunt. Jake waited. Patience was its own weapon. He had learned that in the army. Strike too soon and you lose your advantage. Strike too late and you lose your chance. The trick was finding the perfect moment. The first reached the door of the cabin. It kicked it open with one massive leg and stepped inside. Jake heard scream. But that was part of the plan. The scream came from a recording Jake had made earlier, playing from the back room. A distraction. The second followed the first inside. The third stayed outside, watching the forest. Its red eyes scanned the trees slowly. Now, Jake rose from his hiding spot and fired. The bullet hit the third in the side of its neck, right where the armor was thinnest. The creature stumbled, making a sound of shock and pain. Jake fired again, hitting the same spot. The fell to its knees, dark blood spilling onto the grass. The other 2 burst out of the cabin. They saw their fallen companion and roared with rage. One of them raised its energy rifle and fired at Jake's position. A blast of blue light hit the fallen tree, exploding it into splinters. Jake was already moving. He ran through the forest, leading them toward his first trap. The followed, crashing through the underbrush. They were fast, faster than Jake, but they did not know the terrain. Jake did. He reached the steep hill and stopped, turning to face them. The first charged straight at him, blade raised. Jake waited until the last second, then dove to the side. At the same moment, he pulled the rope he had set earlier. The pile of rocks at the top of the hill came loose and tumbled down. That was caught in the middle of the rock slide. Heavy stones slammed into its body, knocking it off its feet. One huge rock pinned its leg to the ground. The creature screamed and thrashed, but it could not get free. 1 down, 2 left. The second was smarter. It slowed down and approached carefully, watching for more traps. Its red eyes found Jake in the darkness. Little prey, it said. Its voice was deep and rough like stones grinding together. You fight, interesting but useless. Jake did not answer. He raised his rifle and fired. The moved faster than he expected, dodging the bullet. It fired back with its energy rifle. Jake felt the heat of the blast as it passed inches from his face. He ran again, leading the creature toward the covered pit. But saw the trap this time. It stopped at the edge and looked down at the hidden stakes. Clever prey, it said, but not clever enough. It jumped over the pit and came at Jake with its blade. Jake barely had time to pull his knife before it was on him. The fight was brutal. It was bigger, stronger, and armored, but Jake was faster and more desperate. He ducked under a swing that would have taken his head off. He slashed at this arm, finding a gap in the armor. Dark blood sprayed. The roared and swung again. This time it connected. The flat of the blade hit Jake in the ribs and he heard bones crack. Pain exploded through his chest. He fell back against a tree, gasping for breath. The stood over him, blade raised for the killing blow. Its red eyes gleamed with triumph. "All prey dies in the end," it said. Jake looked up at it. Blood was running from his mouth. His ribs were broken. He could barely breathe, but he could still move. He grabbed a handful of dirt and threw it into the eyes. The creature screamed and stumbled back, clawing at its sensitive eyes. Jake pushed himself off the tree and drove his knife forward with all his remaining strength. The blade went through the gap in the armor at the throat. The creature made a choking sound and fell. 2 down, 1 left. Jake limped back toward the cabin. Every step sent fire through his broken ribs. The first was still pinned under the rocks, struggling to pull itself free. Jake shot it twice in the head as he passed. 3 down. He reached the clearing and collapsed on the grass in front of the cabin. The sun was fully up now, painting the mountains gold and pink. It was beautiful. Jake stared at it, wondering if it would be the last thing he ever saw. The cabin door opened. Sierra ran out and fell to her knees beside him. Jake, stay with me." He could barely hear her. Everything was fatting. The pain in his ribs, the cold in his body, the sound of her voice. "Did I get them all?" he whispered. "Yes," Sierra was crying again, silver tears falling on his face. "Yes, you got them all 3. You saved us." Jake smiled. It hurt to smile, but he did it anyway. "Good, that is good." And appeared beside Sierra. They had strange devices in their hands, glowing with soft light. They pressed them against Jake's wounds. "Stay awake," commanded. "Our medical technology can heal you, but you have to stay with us." Jake tried to focus on her face. It was hard. Everything was so dark and warm and peaceful. But then he heard Danny's voice, as clear as if his friend was standing right beside him. "Keep going, brother, you promised." Jake took a breath. It hurt worse than anything he had ever felt, but he kept breathing. He kept his eyes open. He kept fighting. Because that was what humans did. They kept fighting, even when they should have stopped, even when the whole universe told them it was over. They fought anyway. Jake woke to the sound of birds singing outside his window. For a moment, he did not know where he was. Then he recognized the wooden ceiling of his cabin, the familiar smell of pine and smoke, and the weight of blankets on his body. He tried to sit up. The pain in his ribs was still there, but it was dull now, distant. He looked down at his chest and saw that his wounds had been covered with some kind of silver bandage that seemed to glow faintly. "You are awake." Sierra was sitting in the chair by his bed. She looked tired but happy. Her silver eyes were soft with relief. "How long was I out?" Jake asked. 3 days. We almost lost you twice. Your body was badly damaged, but you are strong, stronger than anyone we have ever treated." Jake lay back on the pillow. 3 days. He had been unconscious for 3 days. "The dead, all 3 of them, you killed them." Sierra shook her head slowly. "Our people have observed them for centuries. They have conquered dozens of worlds. No single warrior has ever killed 3 of their hunters alone, not once in recorded history, until you." Jake did not feel like a hero. He felt tired and broken and lucky to be alive. "I just did what I had to do." Sierra smiled. "That is what makes you remarkable. You do not even understand how special you are." The door opened and stepped inside. Her expression was serious but not unhappy. "Jake, there is something you should know. I have been able to repair our long-range communicator. I contacted our people. A rescue ship is coming." "That is good news." "Yes, but there is more." Sat down on the edge of the bed. "Word of what you did has spread through our networks. Other species are talking about it. A single human with primitive weapons killed 3 hunter-killers and protected 3 diplomats. They have never suffered such a defeat at the hands of one individual. Jake did not know what to say. He had not thought about anything beyond surviving the night. Continued. Your world, Earth, has always been viewed as a backwater, a small planet of primitives who have not yet reached the stars. Most species ignored you, but now they are paying attention. They are asking questions. They want to know more about these humans who fight like this. Is that good or bad? I do not know yet, but I think it is mostly good. The galaxy is dangerous, Jake. There are many species like the who prey on the weak. Earth has been protected by its obscurity. Now it may be protected by something else. Respect, fear. Jake thought about that. He had never imagined that one fight in the Montana wilderness could have consequences beyond his own survival. But the universe was bigger than he had ever realized. 2 days later, the rescue ship arrived. It descended through the morning mist and landed in the clearing where they had fallen. It was beautiful, shaped like a silver leaf, and it made no sound at all. Jake stood on his porch and watched as figures emerged from the ship. They were tall and graceful, with the same glowing skin and silver hair as Ansira. Some of them wore uniforms that looked official. They were diplomats and leaders, come to retrieve their people. One of them approached Jake. He was older than the others, with lines on his face and wisdom in his eyes. He introduced himself as counselor. Jake said, bowing slightly, "The stories we have heard do not do you justice. What you did will not be forgotten." Jake shrugged. "I just helped some people who needed help, that is all." Smiled. "That is exactly what we find so remarkable. You did not fight for glory or reward. You fought because it was right. Such purity of purpose is rare in the galaxy." Stepped forward. "Counselor, I would like to offer Jake a place among us. He could travel the stars, serve as an ambassador between our peoples. His courage would inspire many." Jake looked at the silver ship, at the strange and wonderful beings who had come from the stars. Part of him wanted to say yes. Part of him wanted to see what was out there, beyond Earth, beyond everything he knew. But then he looked at the mountains. His mountains. The place where he had healed from his wounds, both physical and emotional. The place where Danny's memory lived in every tree and rock and stream. "Thank you," Jake said, "but my place is here. These mountains need a ranger, and I think I still have work to do on Earth." Nodded with understanding. "Then we will honor your choice. But know this, Jake, if your world ever needs help, you can call on us. You have earned the friendship of the people. That is not a small thing." As the others prepared to leave, Sierra approached Jake one last time. Her eyes were wet with silver tears. "I do not want to go," she said quietly. "I want to stay here with you." Jake took her hand gently. "You have a life out there, a purpose. Your people need you." "But I will miss you." "And I will miss you," Jake smiled. "But you carry my story now, remember. Wherever you go, whatever you do, a part of me goes with you." Sierra reached into her pocket and pulled out a small device. "I want to add something to my mark, to remember this place, this time, and you." Jake nodded. Sierra touched the device to her tattoo. A new word appeared beneath the compass rose, etched into her glowing skin. "Jake." She held up her arm so he could see. "Now you are part of my marking of the remembered forever. When I have children, I will tell them about the human who taught me that courage is not the absence of fear. It is the decision that something else is more important." Jake touched his own tattoo. "And I will keep my promise to Danny. I will keep fighting. I will keep protecting, for as long as I can." They embraced one last time. Then Sierra turned and walked toward the silver ship. She did not look back. Jake understood. Some goodbyes were easier if you did not see the tears. The ship rose silently into the sky and disappeared among the clouds. Jake watched until it was gone. Then he sat down on his porch and looked at the mountains. The world looked the same as it always did, but everything had changed. The universe was bigger now. Humanity had a place in it, a reputation, a future among the stars. And somewhere out there, among distant worlds and alien civilizations, a new word was spreading. A word whispered with fear by the predators who had once thought themselves unstoppable. Human. Jake smiled and closed his eyes. The morning sun was warm on his face. The birds were singing in the trees. Danny's compass rose was still on his arm, still pointing toward the next challenge. And for the first time in 8 years, Jake was ready to face it.